Hello?
Rudy.
Yes.
Hey, it's Rustin Rose. How are you doing?
Hey, Rusty. How you doing? I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing wonderful. I'm glad you were able to cut out a few minutes for us to take a trip down memory lane in honor of the Hall of Heavy Metal Awards coming up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
The last time we spoke, it was about the Animetal album that you had done, so it's been a few years.
It's been a while, yes.
Yeah, so let's take a quick trip down memory lane because this is a huge deal. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame really hasn't done, metal justice. Now we're going to have our own awards, the Hall of Heavy Metal History Awards. How are you feeling about that?
Oh, I feel it's wonderful. It's something that it should have happened a while ago. I'm just so glad that it's happened in my lifetime, and that I'm around to actually receive the award. So I can actually thank people for it. I think it's a wonderful thing, not just for this first award, but for all of the other people that are going to be inducted in the future also. To celebrate the family of all of us, musicians that love and create the music.
Absolutely, and you are in amazingly good company going in. The first set, Ronnie, of course, Ronnie James Dio going in, Metal Blade Records, Scorpions, Rainbow Bar and Grill, of course, Lemmy. And your buddy Frankie Banali of Quiet Riot's going to be there for the 33rd anniversary induction of the band.
Yeah, except for Ross the Boss, I have either played with or have been on tour with, as a part of the touring package with every single band and artist that is going to be inducted.
You've been in so many iconic bands and played with so many amazing people. It's just like you're almost like the Michael Caine of heavy metal. You're in everything and you do it so damn well.
Well, I think I'm more like Forrest Gump of heavy metal. Well, it's good to be something, whatever it is,
You put out that wonderful book back in 2006, Off the Rails, and you talked so much about your time with Randy and everything, but I was kind of hoping if we take a few minutes just to sort of talk about your career and maybe before that even happened, because you came up in this heady LA music scene even before, before Eddie Van Halen was Eddie Van Halen, before Randy was Randy, Carlos Cavazo was in Snow, Dave Manichetti from Y&T was down there all the time. Tell us a little bit about that whole burgeoning scene as you remember it.
Yeah. I arrived actually in 70. I got to town in 76, and I had to leave because I was putting our own band together along. Frankie Banali was in it, and it fell apart. So I had to leave town again and get some more money and come back because it's not. It's at the time you couldn't really play top 40
right.
in Los Angeles. If you live in Hollywood, in the Hollywood area, where everybody kind of like gathered to form an original band, there was really not top 40 scene. So to make a living out of playing music, it was almost non-existent. So we all had day jobs. Randy's day job was to teach, and Drew Forsythe's day job was to teach also. Kevin did other things, and eventually I started teaching at Musonia at Randy's mom school, right before Randy joined Ozzy. So it was a matter of survival, actually. For me it was, because I was playing with Quiet Riot with Randy in it, and of course Kevin and Drew Forsythe, but we were only making enough money to pay for rehearsals. That's the reason why we played, besides doing showcases. It was a matter of making the band self-sustain,
Right.
So all the money that we earned from playing at the Starwood, mostly, a couple of weekends out of the month, went right back into the band. And also to record demos, because we needed, to showcase, and the only way to get the artist relation people, from the record companies to come down and check out the band was to give them a demo to get them interested. Then they would come down or not to watch the band. And most of the time they didn't show up, Right. Because by the time the process was going into like the in 1979. By then, new wave was so strong and punk that that's all the labels were interested in locally in Los Angeles. So it was really a struggle for everybody, except for, like you mentioned, Van Halen. They were already signed. Actually, by the time I got to LA the first time, they already they were working on the first record. So before I joined Quiet Riot, before I joined, they did do a show with Van Halen, I think somewhere in Pasadena, and then Van Halen just took off really fast right after that. So, but everybody else was around. Nikki Sixx had a band called London. Right. Dokken existed in a different formation. George Lynch was playing with a band called The Boys, or something like that. And of course you had who else was there? Great White was around. So everybody rapped. I think it was called Mickey Rat at the time.
Right.
That's where Jackie Lee came from. When he joined Ozzy later, and all of that. So it was everybody. I think everybody was basically competing for that one record deal that happened to be the deal that Quiet Riot got, because nobody else got signed from having been there, and you hear things behind. Even though you're there, you're really not getting all the information. What's actually happening, business-wise, because everything, business back in the day was really kept away from the musicians.
Right.
It was kind of like a mystery. How does this thing work? And I think it happened to a lot of musicians. That's why a lot of musicians got ripped off, because it's not that they were not aware of the business. It's just that the structure of the business was set up so the musicians were not really on top of where their money was going. That's the way it was, And so you hired people to take care of that, and that became a network. But anyways, going into that, it was basically the band Quiet Riot got signed because the producer, Spencer Proffer, who also had the label Pasha was distributed by other labels, and one of them was actually Columbia, which, CBS, which later on was bought by Sony, which is now the owner of that label. And he was looking for a singer that could actually record Come and Feel the Noise. That was his criteria. I'm going to find a guy who can record this song, and this song's going to be a hit.
He just had this vision for the one song, and that changed everything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in a lot of ways, though, it sort of did, because you and I talked about this before. The band didn't really want to do the song initially, if I remember. But take us back, because you had left Ozzy, obviously, dealing with the grief and everything of losing Randy. And then suddenly you're in there working on this Metal Health album that would ultimately become the metal album that broke everybody wide open. Tell us your memories of making that album and what was going on at that time.
Yeah, actually, I did not leave Ozzy and then work on the record. I was working on both. Because while I was still a member of Ozzy, I got a call from Kevin to just, as a tribute to Randy, come in and record a song called Thunderbird, which I used to play with Kevin in his own band called Dubrow, because I was living with him right before I joined Ozzy. And I would play with Kevin and Dubrow, and, songs like Love's a Bitch and Thunderbird and a few others that wound up on the Metal Health records. We used to play that live, So he invited me, to come in and record it. And, of course, Frankie Banali, who I have been known him and play with him since 1972, 73, he was already in the band. And Carlos, who I briefly knew from being in the same circuit, from him being in Snow and Quiet Riot doing some shows together, I went in and recorded Thunderbird, and it felt good. It felt really, really good. It was more like an emotional refuge for me to get away from the grief of, going on stage and playing Ozzy songs without Randy, So, yeah, I actually did leave one of the biggest bands in the world for total unknown, just because I needed to put joy back in my playing again. And also, it felt good. The joy was brought back by the fact that I could actually probably not be as successful as I was with Ozzy, but still, the joy of playing still was the most important thing to me. Still is the joy of playing. That's what happened. So the day that I went in to do one song, Thunderbird, I actually wound up playing like on four or five other songs that are on the record. We did Slate by Cadillac, where I knew that song from playing in the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot. We did Love's a Bitch, and we did a couple more that we used to do in Dubrow, and one or two more. So by the time that I finished the session, still as a member of Ozzy, I hadn't recorded what's known as Speak of the Devil yet with Ozzy. By the time that happened, I left the studio, and as a matter of fact, Tony Cavazzo was coming in to lay down the tracks to the bass track, well, actually for the whole band to record, Come and Feel the Noise. And that's when I overheard the guys, Frankie and Kevin, talking about, trying to sabotage the song. So Spencer will give up on it, And Frankie did one take, and that was it. That's what you hear in the record.
You didn't play on every song ultimately, though, did you?
No. From day one, it says on the back of the album, it has like credits for other people that are actually performing on the album. We had a keyboard player perform on that, and there's some people singing background. Chuck Wright, from day one, before the first pressing of that album, says on the back of the record, just like it's customary, giving him credit for performing on the track Metal Health and The One I Let You Down. It's there.
I thought Tony Cavazzo had some play in there as well.
Well, the Tony Cavazzo credit is actually as a songwriter on Metal Health, because Metal Health originally was a Snow song called No More Booze or No More Beer, something like that. No more booze. That'll bang your head,
You've got to write a second book. There's another book in you, my friend. You've got to write another one.
No, there's no trivia. And so, when you read the song credits, he is credited for being a songwriter on Metal Health. Frankie, Kevin, Carlos, and Tony.
What are you most looking forward to at this inaugural Hall of Heavy Metal Awards? What's going to mean the most to you?
Mean the most to be around to thank the people who have been part of my journey or allowed me to be part of their journey also. So, yeah, that's going to mean the most to me, actually, to be able to thank everybody.
Well, and thank you to you for all that you've given us. It means the world. It really does.
But I'm not done yet.
Of course not. My last question was going to be, with all the projects you've been working on lately, what's on your plate right now? What have you been doing this last year or so, and what's coming up?
Well, since a few months ago, I've been sitting in for Jim Cale from the bass player of the Guess Who.
Oh, wow.
So I've been doing shows with them. Yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, I grew up with the Guess Who, and it to play with Gary Peterson, the original drummer, and it's such a treat, really a treat, musical treat. It puts joy in my life, to play, great music, great musicians, great people. And so I've been doing that, and there's a few more projects. I always keep getting phone calls to do stuff,
I wonder.
So, still doing Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp and all of that. So it's all good.
A lot of irons in the fire. Awesome, Rudy. Thank you so much for taking some time. It was an honor, as always. Congratulations on being in the inaugural set of the inductees into the Hall of Heavy Metal history.
And thank you so much. Thank you for your support all these years. It's it means so much to all of us, because I know that you support the whole family. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful time at the event, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk again with one of your next projects.
Yeah.